Tell us your story, Faridah.
I was a young journalist in the Malay Mail in 1989 when the first Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting was going to be held in Malaysia, a first time in Malaysia. And so I was a young journalist at that time covering current affairs and basically man-in-the-street type interviews. So when we learned that the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh were going to be coming to open CHOGM, my news editor at that time, Frankie de Cruz, assigned me to cover the run-up to the Queen's visit. So that included being in daily contact with the British High Commission press office. There was a press officer at that time by the name of Tim, and for the life of me, I cannot remember his surname. And I would be in daily contact with him to find out all the updates in terms of the preparation at Kakosa Srinagara, where the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh would be staying, as well as the itinerary. And then one day, out of the blue, I get this invitation in the mail. And it's a gold embossed invitation inviting me to have tea with the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh at Kakosa Srinagara. So I was in absolute shock because as I said, I've been covering, current affairs and men in the street. Typical girl at that time. After the initial shock, I was like, what on earth am I going to wear? So we had been already given information about a week before the meeting with the Queen about the do's and don'ts. So for example, we couldn't take any photographs with her, we were to curtsy, and we had to refer to her as Mum. And so the day comes and I joined a group of about 20 other journalists. I was the only one from my news group, which was a New Straits Times group, who had got the invitation. So we line up to meet the Queen and the Duke, and of course they were completely punctual. And so we go through the line and she meets all of us and we shake her hand and the ladies curtsy and the men bow. And then we move on to have tea where we're all kind of standing in our little groups. And I thought, okay, that's it, we're not going to have any chat with her. But she comes around to all the individual tables and has a word with everyone. So what happens is she comes to our table and I'm standing there with about 3 or 4 other female journalists and she's standing right next to me. And she goes, are there a lot of female journalists in Malaysia? And I look around to the group and everyone's like frozen because we are in shock. And so I take it upon myself and I look to her and I said, yes, Mom, there's quite a few of us at this time. And she turns and she smiles at me and she says, oh, that's good. And she moves on. And that remains such a memory. I'm still getting goosebumps thinking about it because never in a million years did I ever think I would meet Queen Elizabeth II. And it was such a momentous and historic moment for me. And last night when I heard the news that she was really sick, this was the one memory of her that I'll carry to the end of my days.
Right. Upon your meeting her and, going through that shock phase that you went through, so to speak, what did you learn? I'm sure you read a lot about her, and a lot that she's done in her life has also resonated within your life, and apparently, from what you've told me before, with the lives of women in Malaysia and the world.
Yeah, I mean, at those days we didn't have the internet, so a lot of stuff that we had to at the last minute look for was about the fact that she was such an iconic woman because at the age of 27 she became queen. At a time when there were the idea of women's leadership or gender equality was not even in the lexicon of what we hear now when we talk about women and young women and leadership. So to meet someone who was so iconic, who carried herself with such grace and dignity, and who showed all of us what it was like to be a leader and to show that it was about duty and about service, and all the challenges that she faced during her life, both personal as well as professional, and to always carry herself with such dignity, I think remains a lesson that I carry and a lesson that I share whenever I do work with women who are young leaders.
Mm-hmm. I guess there's just so much to take back from this. Before this, we were speaking to Chris Sayer, the president or former president of the Malaysian British Society, and he said it's so hard to talk about 7 decades of what she's done. But having said that, I'm sure it was quite a week for you in preparation to meet the Queen Mother back then. What was it like learning how to curtsy and then subsequently, moving along life, learning social graces, keeping that in mind that they are very attentive to social graces. And do you use that as a sort of a teaching thing within your training these days?
Gerald, I practiced in front of the mirror for days on how to curtsy to her. And also, you know how to pronounce the word mom, because you don't want to call her ma'am. You're not supposed to refer to her as Her Majesty. So I practiced for days. And, you know, when the moment comes, it's surreal because it's kind of like an out-of-body experience when you meet her. But what I was taken with when I met her, and I didn't speak so much to the Duke of Edinburgh, but I remember that how gentle and how kind she was, which was something that I did not expect. Because of course you think she's going to be regal and she's going to be very distant, but she was standing right next to me and she was so, you know, if I can use the word, humble and so real and so down to earth. And so that is a lesson that I carry whenever I do my training or my coaching with women, is that, you know, if you want to know, you know, we talk today a lot about all these things that we need to know as female leaders. But, you know, if you look back in history, I think she stands out as someone who was at the highest echelon of life. And yet, when she met little old me and all the other journalists who were there, she made it so easy for us to be comfortable and to talk to her. And that remains burnished in my memory.
Before I let you go, we've got about a minute left. Your message to Malaysia with regards to the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, and also to our friends from the UK who are now residing in Malaysia.
Yeah, I have friends and family in the UK, so my deepest condolences to the people of the United Kingdom and also the Commonwealth. We are all part of the Commonwealth, and she is indelibly intertwined with most of our lives. Those of us who are a bit older, she's the only queen that we have ever known. And so it's going to be quite a transition to go to King Charles. I mean, even that is difficult for me to say because I've only ever referred to him as Prince Charles. And I will be there to either online or in person to sign the condolence book. One memory that remains with me is when Princess Diana died, and how there was a lot of furor about how the royal family handled it. And I think that is an absolute lesson in leadership, that the Queen actually, listening to what the people said, came out and she gave a message that united the country.